and welcome back, everyone. This is the second video for Star Voyage. This is piecing the center medallion, and also we'll show you the outer border corners, which is the same as the center medallion, except it is smaller. So this is the assembled one of the blocks that is assembled for the center medallion. It takes 4 of these for the center medallion. There's also 4 individuals of these blocks in a smaller size. That is for the outer border corners. That would be this block. The difference is the outside border. The inside border for the center medallion is done with the blue, and the outer corner borders is done with the teal. So what we're going to do is we are going to do block A first for the center medallion. So we're going to start with 1B, which is the background fabric, which on mine it is the black. And as always, I'm just doing just a little bit of glue just to hold that. I'm going to place it, I'm going to flip it over and check it. Everything looks good. And actually, I'm going to adjust it just a little bit. There we go. So I'm just going to take my template and lay it down, fold it over, and use my add a quarter. It did flip back, so I'm just going to put just a dab of glue at the very end. So now we're going to take our 2E piece. We're going to place it down, and it does fold at a slight angle. So if you need to make sure that on the upper side that you have just a little more than a quarter, and make sure that it is further on the bottom side since it's folding up. So we're going to take it to the machine, fold it over. We're going to check it by lifting up the edge, and it is lined up. So I'm going to start back before the line as always and stitch past the line. I'm going to bring it back over, fold it over, and press. One of the other items is I don't press this way. I press from my first piece towards the fold so that I push it over. I want to get a good fold. If you fold it over by hand and you just press this way, there's a chance that you can leave extra, and that causes problems when you go to piece it up. But if you start here and you press more, you don't have to come all the way over here though. If you just start and you press towards the piece that you just stitched, then you can run your iron straight over the top. That will make sure that you have your fabric folded and pressed over without leaving excess. So now we're going to fold again for 3D. This one folds more straight, so we do want to make sure we got about 1/4 of an inch on the bottom. We want the extra to be towards the left. We've got that in there, so we're going to go to the machine and sew. And here I've got it off a little bit, so I just lift it up and adjust it back. The key to getting these really awesome points is what I was just saying about making sure that you press towards the fabric, towards the seam, so that you get a really tight seam in there. And when you sew the pieces on, your points will line up. So now we're going to do 4B, and again this does the same thing. This folds at an angle, so leave about 1/4 of an inch on the left side and put the excess going over. Take it to our machine and sew. And so right here, you can see, here's the line, and I'm starting in here. Here's my lines, and I'm sewing past it. That way, when I sew on this line, this seam is locked in. When I sew on this line, this seams are locked in. And when you sew past, you just carefully pull the fabric back down, then trim. This one goes at a slight angle up also, so we just adjust enough to make sure that we're going to, when we fold it, we still have plenty on our seam allowance. So now we're going to do 6B, which is this little small triangle right here. Now on this one, you want to make sure you have it, you can see the dotted line and the solid line. You want to make sure you have it just a little bit past the dotted line. Lay it straight on the edge, lined up. We're going to check it. I'm off just a little bit, so I just grab the black and shift it out just a hair. So next we are going to do 7A. So 7A is this big piece. It is bigger than the actual triangle, but this is beginner, remember, and so you do want to have a bigger piece when you're learning. And so what you can do here is you can actually, if you have the cutting mat here, line the edge of your fabric up with one of the lines, and when you look straight up, here is my line. Right here is the edge. So I can see that I've got enough to get past that to trim when I fold it. And that's what you want to look at. That way you don't have to take it back out. It looks like you should have it down here more. But if you do, when you fold it up, you're going to see here with this line that you're going to be short. So the best thing to do is place it right on the edge. I've got my seam line here, so I know I'm getting past it. Then I'm going to line it up, turn it and shift it so that the straight edge of my fabric is lined up on the line, and I see I have enough to reach it. I'm going to stitch it just a little bit, and then I'm going to check it. Make sure that I am still lined up. And what you can do is, when you got it lined up, just hold it a little bit because it is a longer piece. So now what I do is I fold it over, because it is a bigger piece. I fold it over and I finger press it a little bit. Then I come back in with my iron. If you don't have an iron that you're using for this, you can use the roller. You can finger press it really good. Okay, so now I got that done. So here's what I do on this, because it is a bigger piece, and I don't want it to shift, especially when I start putting it together. I just take my glue stick, I put a couple of dabs, and I hit it with the iron to go ahead and let that glue stick. So now I'm going to trim for 8A. So now with 8A, when I have this straight line, the color is here, your colored piece is here. I'm going to take the edge of it and start it just barely past the dotted line, because again, I need to reach here. You can also see it's a little bit longer, so if you want to shift it over just to make sure you have enough, you can do the exact same thing that you just did with 7. Line it up, it's straight. Put the straight edge on your line, and here on this one is my edge that I'm going to trim on. So I know that I've got enough. One of the biggest things that I have heard with paper piecing is about the amount of fabric that is cut out for the blocks. Yes, you do have more waste with paper piecing, but the points that you can get in paper piecing would drive you insane to try and get those in traditional. Log cabin blocks, for example. You get one, you doing all those strips. What I'm doing here real quick is I'm doing the same thing I've done. Just a little bit of glue just to hold it over. Log cabin blocks, as I was saying. You get off a thread or two on each one. By the time you get to the end, your block doesn't line up with the next one. You paper piece a log cabin block, you have no issues. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this one up real quick. I have an outer line for trimming and the inner line that is the actual stitch line. I can lay my 1/4 inch dark line right on the inner line. This is my leftover piece. It is bigger. This goes into my scrap box. It will find a use for something somewhere. It could be that it is, I could get several pieces out of that for a mug rug. And there is block A. And you can see the really fine points that we have here. So now we're going to do block B. So again, we start with 1B. Little dab of glue to hold it. And as I said before, you do not have to use glue if you don't want to. You can use pins. You can use Elmer's glue tape. I like the glue because it is washable. If I wash this quilt, I would use it more as a wall hanging. You definitely can use it as a baby quilt. But I like the glue just because it's quicker pinning. Takes time, and you have to take in, make sure that you don't shift it. You make sure you don't get it scrunched up. All right, so we're taking our 2D piece, and everything's labeled 1B, 2D, 3E. They're labeled in the color chart, and as a color chart in with the pattern, along with all of your cutting. And there's also in with the pattern a blank version of Star Voyage, so that if you want to color it and figure out colors yourself that you don't like, that you want to change it and make it unique for you, which I really want you to do, by all means do it. You can make copies of the inner color chart, and so you can practice with colors. All right, so I brought this machine and I'm going to stitch 1B to 2D. And we're going to do 3E. And this is the reverse, so you want to make sure you have slightly over 1/4 of an inch on the left side. So now we've got 4B on, now we're doing 5D. These blocks go together really quick. A little bit of crease in that, so I'm just going to press it out. Alright. We're going to make sure we got it a little over 1/4 of an inch. You should have plenty of room. So I've got it probably about 3/8 or so. Lift it up and check. And this one, you want to make sure you're at least past the cut line on 6B. And because I sew over, it does pull it up. So we just carefully pull it back down. We don't want to tear too much. We'll tear just a little bit when we're putting it down, but that's okay. So now on this one, we are doing it the other way. So I'm going to line it up the line on the left and check for my cutting line. And I see that I have enough. So again, now I've got it pressed over, just a little bit of glue to hold it. Because it is a bigger piece, if you don't put a little bit of dab of glue or something, you can pin it if you need to also. Just holds it from shifting when you're putting these together. So now we're going to do 8A. So again, on this one, we're going to make sure we're past the dotted line. We shift it over and we line it up, and we can see that we have enough. So if we need to bring it over a little bit more, we can. Just always double check that. I hate having to use a seam ripper, as I'm sure all of y'all do. So when you check it this way, you know you have enough and you don't have to take this seam back out. And again, I do just a little bit to hold it over. I use these glue sticks, but I also use the Elmer's purple washable glue. Just whichever I have around at the moment. So now we're going to trim this one up. So again, I have this piece left over, and it goes in my scrap pile. Great for mug rugs. So now I have block B and block A, and they go together just like this. So all we have to do is place them down. And how I do this is after I place them, I just turn them and tap them like cards. Then I go through and I can see that they are lined up on each end. So I just go to my machine and I'm stitching down the long side along 7A and 7C. So once I start my stitch, I just make sure it's lined up. I take the end and hold it and use my finger to guide it. If you are still new to this and you're not comfortable lining it up, thinking you may be off, baste it first, take it out, check it, and then go back and do your stitching. Okay, so I'm always going to lay my 7C side up and fold over so that my seam is pressed towards the 7C. Finger press it. And then press it with the iron. So what I'm going to do here real quick is trim off these dowel gears. So now that we have this pressed, we're going to join another one. And so the way they join is when you're facing them up, it's going to be 7C this way, 7A this way. So you should always have your alternating colors. Same thing as before. I've got them lined up and I'm just tapping them. Checking. One way that you can look and make sure that you're on target is when you look inside, your blue and teal should line up. Your two blacks should line up at the end, and so should your border at the bottom, which is the blue on mine. They line up so I can go to my machine and stitch. So now that they're stitched, I am actually going to, again, I'm going to lay the 7A side up that I just stitched on, and I'm going to flip and press. This keeps my seams all going in the same direction. Okay, so now we're going to join the two together now to create the whole center medallion, just like this is how they're going to go together. This one has got a slightly bit off, just where I missed trimming just a hair. So what I'm going to do is line them both up and trim that little piece off. So this is how they're going to go together. It's always alternating. Blue, which is the A, teal, which is the C, alternate around. So I can just lay this over on top of it. And here's how I want to start this. I want to line up that seam in the middle. And I do recommend that you use pins here. Your best bet is to go in with your pins from the side. Don't try to go in like this because you're going to scrunch it. Go in from the side. Because when you come up to your machine and you're stitching, you just pull it out. And I can see that I am slightly off. Alright, so now I've got it lined up. I definitely recommend that you baste on this until you get used to it, because you're going to want to open this up and make sure it's right. Go slower on this because you're going over several layers and you don't want to grab it and bunch it. Check your seam, make sure it's still going in the right direction. So there we have that sewn together. And now what we're going to do is all of the seams are pressing in the right direction. We open it up. And we see that everything is lined up. So we do have a little bit of bunch in the middle. So what I do is I take my scissors and I cut just a little bit of that excess out at an angle. And then I snip it straight in on both sides of these. And straight in the center a little bit. Not too much, you don't want to get into that seam. And I snip it and I just fan it out a little bit. Just like that, so that I can press it down. If you take your thumb, once you press it down, and you twist your thumb on it just a little bit, you now have that bulk spread out. I'm doing this with a small iron right now. I would use my big one on this just to get that seam set. But that is your center medallion for Star Voyage. So the other part we're doing is I'm going to show you the finish. The exact same technique for your corners, except you are using the teal for the borders, and you're not putting these together. You are simply making 4 and holding onto them. And in our next video, we are going to put these together with the border blocks and assemble the quilt. So I hope you're enjoying this so far. I've got one more video for this, and it's doing the border blocks with the corner blocks and doing the assembly of the quilt. And then you will have your own version of Star Voyage ready. So I hope you've truly, truly enjoyed it. It's great to have you here with me watching these videos. If you haven't gotten your copy of Star Voyage yet, the website is listed. It's vectorquilts.com, and just go to patterns. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a great day